The role of myths in your personal growth. The power of ancient stories. What if I told you that the key to understanding your deepest struggles and greatest potential lies hidden in stories that are thousands of years old? Stories that have been told around campfires, carved into stone, and passed down through generations, not because they're entertaining, but because they contain something essential about what it means to be human. Think about it for a moment. Why do we still tell the same stories? Why does the tale of a hero venturing into the unknown, facing monsters, and returning transformed resonate just as powerfully today as it did 3,000 years ago? Why do we find ourselves drawn to stories of death and rebirth, of the journey from darkness to light, of the battle between good and evil? Carl Jung, the pioneering psychologist, discovered something remarkable about these ancient myths. He realized they weren't just stories, they were psychological blueprints. Maps of the human psyche that reveal the universal patterns of growth, struggle, and transformation that we all experience. But here's what most people miss. These myths aren't just about other people or fictional characters. They're about you. Right now. Your life is unfolding according to these same archetypal patterns, whether you realize it or not. And when you begin to understand this, everything changes. Today, we are going to explore how myths can become your greatest allies in personal growth, how they can help you understand where you are in your journey, what challenges you're facing, and most importantly, how to navigate them with wisdom and purpose. What are myths really? Before we dive deeper, let's clear up a common misunderstanding. When most people hear the word myth, they think of false stories, outdated beliefs, or primitive attempts to explain the natural world. But that's not what myths really are. Myths are encoded wisdom. They're the distilled essence of human experience, passed down through generations because they contain truths that remain relevant across all cultures and time periods. They're not meant to be taken literally. They're meant to be understood symbolically. Jung understood this better than anyone. He saw that myths emerge from what he called the collective unconscious, the deepest layer of the psyche that we all share. This is why the same basic story patterns appear in cultures that had no contact with each other. The hero's journey isn't just a Greek story or a Norse story, it's a human story. But here's where it gets personal. Jung discovered that these mythic patterns don't just exist in ancient stories, they're actively playing out in your psychological development right now. Every time you face a challenge, make a difficult decision, or go through a period of growth, you're participating in an archetypal pattern that has been repeated countless times throughout human history. Think about your own life for a moment. Can you identify times when you felt like you were on a hero's journey? When you had to leave familiar territory, face your fears, and emerge transformed? Can you remember moments when you've encountered what Jung would call your shadow, the parts of yourself you'd rather not acknowledge? These aren't coincidences. These are the universal patterns of human growth, and myths are the language that helps us understand them. Jung's discovery, myths as psychological maps. Carl Jung's breakthrough came when he realized that the symbols and patterns in myths correspond directly to the structures and processes of the human psyche. He called these universal patterns archetypes, primordial images that exist in the collective unconscious and influence our behavior, thoughts, and emotions. Jung believed that myths serve as psychological maps because they show us the landscape of the human experience. They reveal the challenges we'll face, the resources we have available, and the destination we are heading toward. Most importantly, they show us that we are not alone in our struggles. We are part of a larger human story. Consider the archetype of the hero. In myths, the hero begins in the ordinary world, receives a call to adventure, initially refuses it, meets a mentor, crosses a threshold into the unknown, faces trials, confronts their greatest fear, and returns home transformed with wisdom to share. This isn't just a story structure, it's a psychological process. Jung recognized that this same pattern plays out in our personal development. We start in our comfort zone, face a challenge that calls us to grow, often resist it at first, find guidance or support, take the leap, struggle with difficulties, confront our deepest fears or limitations, and emerge stronger with new insights. But here's what makes Jung's understanding so powerful. He didn't just see myths as descriptions of what happens. He saw them as guides for what should happen. They don't just show us the path, they show us how to walk it consciously. When you understand that your struggles are part of a larger archetypal pattern, it changes everything. Instead of feeling lost or overwhelmed, you can see where you are in the journey and what might be coming next. Instead of feeling alone, you can draw strength from the countless others who have walked this path before you. The hero's journey in your life. Let's get specific about how this works in your life. The hero's journey isn't just something that happens to mythical characters. It's the fundamental pattern of growth and transformation that we all experience multiple times throughout our lives. Think about a significant challenge you've faced recently. Maybe it was a career change, the end of a relationship, a health crisis, or a period of deep questioning about your purpose. Can you see the hero's journey pattern in your experience? You probably started in what Joseph Campbell called the ordinary world, your familiar routine, your comfort zone, your established way of being. Then something happened that disrupted this stability. Jung would say you received a call to adventure, a challenge that invited you to grow beyond your current limitations. Did you resist this call at first? Most of us do. We try to maintain the status quo, to solve our problems with our existing resources and understanding. But eventually, we realize that growth requires us to venture into unknown territory. This is where the real journey begins. You cross what mythologists call the threshold. You leave behind what's familiar and step into uncertainty. This might mean leaving a job, ending a relationship, moving to a new city, or simply deciding to face a part of yourself you've been avoiding. In the unknown territory, you encounter trials and challenges that test your resolve. You discover resources you didn't know you had. You meet allies and mentors who guide you. And eventually, you face what Jung called the ordeal, the confrontation with your deepest fears, limitations, or shadows. This is the most crucial part of the journey. It's where real transformation happens. You can't bypass this stage. You have to go through it. You have to face whatever it is that's been holding you back, limiting your growth, or keeping you stuck in old patterns. When you emerge from this ordeal, you're not the same person who began the journey. You've been transformed. You have new wisdom, new capabilities, new understanding of yourself and the world. And then comes the final stage, the return home, where you integrate what you've learned and share it with others. The beautiful thing about understanding this pattern is that it helps you navigate these challenges with greater consciousness and purpose. Instead of being overwhelmed by difficulty, you can recognize it as part of your hero's journey and ask yourself, what is this challenge trying to teach me? How is it calling me to grow? Meeting your shadow through myth. One of Jung's most profound contributions to psychology was his concept of the shadow, the parts of ourselves that we reject, deny, or hide from others and even from ourselves. And myths provide some of the most powerful tools for understanding and integrating our shadow. In mythic stories, the hero often encounters dark figures, dragons, demons, monsters, or evil characters. Jung understood that these aren't just external enemies. They represent the shadow aspects of the hero's own psyche. The dragon guarding the treasure isn't just an obstacle to overcome. It's a part of the hero that needs to be faced and integrated. This is where myths become deeply personal. Every myth that resonates with you is showing you something about your own psychological landscape. The characters you admire reflect your potential. The characters you fear or despise often represent your shadow. Think about the stories that have always fascinated you. What archetypal patterns do they contain? What characters do you identify with? And what characters do you react strongly against? These reactions are clues to your own inner dynamics. Jung believed that we can't become whole until we acknowledge and integrate our shadow. This doesn't mean acting out negative impulses. It means recognizing them, understanding their origins, and finding constructive ways to channel that energy. Myths show us how this integration works. Often, the hero doesn't destroy the monster. They transform it, tame it, or learn from it. The shadow becomes an ally once it's acknowledged and understood. In your own life, this might mean recognizing the ways you've been avoiding responsibility, the fears that have been holding you back, or the parts of your personality you've been suppressing. It might mean acknowledging anger you've been denying, ambition you've been ashamed of, or vulnerability you've been hiding. The key insight from mythic wisdom is that these shadow aspects aren't just problems to be solved. They're sources of power and authenticity that become available when we stop fighting them and start integrating them. Archetypes and personal growth. Jung identified several key archetypes that appear in myths and in our psychological development. Understanding these can help you recognize what energies are active in your life and how to work with them consciously. The innocent represents our natural state of wonder, trust, and openness. When this archetype is active, you're drawn to new experiences and possibilities. But it can also make you naive or overly trusting. The explorer drives us to seek new experiences, to push boundaries, to discover who we are through adventure and challenge. This archetype fuels personal growth but can also lead to restlessness or an inability to commit. The sage seeks truth and understanding. When this energy is strong, you're driven to learn, to understand, to gain wisdom. But it can also lead to analysis paralysis or intellectual arrogance. The lover represents our capacity for passion, connection, and commitment. This archetype drives us toward intimacy and belonging but can also lead to codependency or loss of individual identity. The rebel challenges authority and fights for change. This energy is essential for breaking free from limiting patterns, but can also lead to destructive behavior or constant conflict. The magician represents our ability to transform reality through will, vision, and action. This archetype empowers us to create change but can also lead to manipulation or grandiosity. The key to working with archetypes is recognizing which ones are active in your life and learning to balance their energies. None of these archetypes is inherently good or bad. They all have both positive and shadow aspects. Right now, which archetypal energies do you feel most strongly? Which ones have you been avoiding or suppressing? How might understanding these patterns help you navigate your current challenges more effectively? Practical applications. So how do you actually use this understanding in your daily life? How do you make myths and archetypes practical tools for personal growth? First, start paying attention to the stories that resonate with you. What movies, books, or myths do you find yourself drawn to? What patterns do they contain? What do they reveal about your own psychological landscape and current challenges? Second, begin to see your life through the lens of archetypal patterns. When you're facing a challenge, ask yourself, what archetypal energy would serve me here? Am I being called to be the hero who ventures into the unknown? The sage who seeks understanding? The rebel who challenges the status quo? Third, use mythic wisdom to reframe your struggles. Instead of seeing difficulties as problems to be avoided, see them as part of your hero's journey. Instead of seeing uncomfortable emotions as weaknesses, see them as invitations to explore your shadow. Fourth, practice what Jung called active imagination. Engage with the symbolic language of your unconscious through dreams, creative expression, or meditation. Pay attention to the images and symbols that emerge. They often contain guidance for your next steps. Finally, remember that myths are not just individual stories, they're collective wisdom. Connect with others who are on similar journeys. Share your struggles and insights. Learn from the experiences of others who have walked similar paths. The goal isn't to fit your life into a predetermined mythic pattern, but to use these patterns as tools for understanding and navigating your unique journey with greater consciousness and wisdom. As we come to the end of our exploration, I want you to consider this. Your life is not a random series of events. It's not a meaningless struggle against chaos. It's a meaningful journey that follows archetypal patterns that have been recognized and honored by human beings for thousands of years. When you understand this, everything changes. Your struggles become part of a larger story. Your growth becomes part of a universal pattern. Your challenges become opportunities for transformation that connect you to the deepest wisdom of humanity. Jung believed that the goal of life is individuation, becoming who you truly are by integrating all aspects of yourself, including your shadow. Myths are the roadmap for this journey. They show you where you are, where you're going, and how to get there. But here's the most important thing. This isn't just theoretical knowledge. This is practical wisdom that can transform your daily experience. When you start seeing your life through the lens of archetypal patterns, you gain access to resources and insights that can help you navigate any challenge. So here's my challenge for you. Choose one myth or archetypal pattern that resonates with your current situation. Study it. Reflect on it. Look for the parallels in your own life. Ask yourself, what is this pattern trying to teach me? How is it calling me to grow? And then take action. Not someday, not when you feel ready, but now. Because the hero's journey doesn't begin when you feel prepared. It begins when you answer the call. I'd love to hear about your journey. In the comments below, tell me, what mythic pattern do you see playing out in your life right now? What call to adventure are you facing? What shadow aspects are you being called to integrate? If this resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe for more content on personal growth, psychology, and the wisdom of Carl Jung. And remember, you're not just living your life, you're participating in a story that connects you to the deepest truths of human experience. The question isn't whether you're on a hero's journey. You are. The question is whether you'll walk it consciously, with wisdom and purpose, or whether you'll stumble through it unaware of its deeper meaning. The choice is yours. The journey awaits.